Oh, hey, brought my favorite terrain and I set it up. You ready to go? How about we don't do that and we make some better terrain instead? Hey everyone, welcome back to the table. I'm Scott, and today we're gonna make some wargaming terrain. Now, this is gonna focus on making 40K terrain, but really it can be adapted to work with just about any other wargaming system. As a quick note, I do have all the cuts and measurements from our guide are gonna be down below. And while you're on your way down there to check that out, make sure you like and subscribe. We would appreciate it. For us and for the guide that we have, this is the breakdown. We're going to start with Group A, which is going to be 2 pieces on the 12 by 6 inch footprint. There's going to be 3 floors. Floor 1 and 2 will be 3 inches tall each. The front face will be 7.5 inches, and the sides are going to be 4 inches wide. Group B, which is going to be, we're going to need 2 pieces, and this is also going to be on the 12 by 6. It's going to be 2 floors. Floor 1 will be 4.75 inches tall, where the front is going to be 7.5 inches, and the side is going to be 4 inches deep as well. Group C is also going to be 2 floors. Floor 1 is going to be 3.5 inches tall. Front is going to be 7.5 and 4 inches deep. So the big difference between Group B and Group C is that Group C is going to be a little bit shorter. And Group D is meant to go on the 10 inches by 5 inches terrain. We're going to need 2 of these, and there's going to be 2 floors that are going to be 3.5 inches tall as well, and the front is going to be 5.5 inches and the side 3 inches. Our final group, Group E, which is going to be a single floor, 5 inches front and 2 inches side. We're just going to make a little baby room. We're using a 1/2 inch insulation foam that you can get at a local hardware store. Some of the tools that we're using are a T-square, a marker, tape measure, and a utility knife. Now, optionally, you can use a foam cutter, but you don't have to use that. To start, we're going to mark off all of our pieces using our ruler or T-square. As you're measuring out your pieces, make sure you label them. We have outlined our guide. I recommend you follow this method or use your own numbering system, so that way you can easily sort the pieces after you've cut them. It's really easy for them to get mixed up, and it's going to be even more difficult to be able to assemble everything properly if you don't have them marked. Now, once everything's marked up, we used our utility knife on our straight edge, and we're going to cut out the pieces. Now, we finished up by using the foam cutter. However, you don't have to do that. Once you have everything cut up and organized into its groups, here we have Group A, you can start gluing everything. Now, for gluing, we like to use a hot glue gun. You could use other types of glue, such as PVA glue, rubber cement, or even super glue, and we'll have links for that stuff down below. Now, a quick note about the links that we have down below. They are Amazon associate links. You can use them if you like. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but each of your purchases do give us a little bit of a commission, which definitely helps the channel, and we greatly appreciate. Let's go ahead and get started gluing. During this process, I'm kind of breaking these up into 2 subgroups. Each of these groups, I'm going to be using the same kind of pieces. Before we get too far, I want you to pay attention to the guide itself. The guide itself is going to show you the direction that they need to go. For this first piece, for the A pieces, it's a little bit simpler because it's going to be from the top, it's going to look like a C. But for the other ones, they're going to be an L, and the direction of the L is going to matter which way you go. So look for the directionality that it shows on each of these guides and telling you which way you need to go. Now, this process is relatively simple, and we're going to be repeating it for everything else. Once everything is glued, then this is your opportunity to be able to give it some flair, to give your terrain some personality. You can do this a couple different ways. You can rough up the terrain, put marks, gouges, scrapes into it. You can also add accessories. So in this particular case, we're adding some of the World Eater's accessories, which is some ruined terrain. We're cutting out some things. Now, you don't have to get this fancy. You can keep it simple and plain, and there's nothing wrong with that. Before you get too far into it, you're going to want to make sure that your terrain is cleaned up. So if you did some scraping and gouging into it, you might want to take a quick brush to it and get all of the extra bits and pieces. And during the gluing process, if there's big chunks of glue floating around, You might want to trim those up with a knife or cut them up unless you want them to be part of your terrain itself. The next step is going to be prep it for painting. If you use an aerosol can onto the foam itself, it's going to actually eat the foam or dissolve the foam. The easy way to protect your foam and your project from doing this is cover the entire thing with some PVA glue. You can buy PVA glue at a local hardware store or you can order it online. You're just going to put a thin coat on and brush the entire thing with it. This will take a little bit to dry. The next step for this is to actually prime everything black. Next, we're going to take some gray paint and spray over that. Lastly, we're going to take some white spray paint. We do have a really cool video making dioramas, which uses the same basically method for painting and for making a wash, and we give you the details how to make your own, and that link will be up above. We're just using a simple black wash, but you could do brown, gray, you know, whatever tickles your fancy, depending on what kind of terrain or theme that you're going to use. Once the wash is dry, our very last step is going to be dry brushing. Now, dry brushing is a fantastic way and add fine highlights to your terrain and make it really pop. Now, there's a lot of other methods, such as a sponge method or stippling type method that you can do to be able to give it variation in texture. Now, we do have a good video on dry brushing, part of our How to Make a Diorama series, and again, I'll put a link up for that below above so you can get to it. So during the dry brush, we're going to stick with 3 different layers of this. We're going to start with a darker color, and then we're going to gradually go to a brighter color, making sure that we are letting each layer dry along the way. Your terrain might come out slightly different than ours, and that's okay. That's perfect. Every terrain piece, it should be slightly different. We are planning on making 80 sets of this terrain, and we're going to have about 20 different themes that we're going to be incorporating through all of this. So we're going to be doing more videos in the future showing you how those look and what we decided. Good luck making your own terrain. If you have questions, make sure you ask them down below or jump on our Discord. We're happy to be able to give feedback, advice, or help you along if you're stuck. And until next time, when we see you at the table.